Hello, my beautiful souls. Have you ever had a moment when fate seemed to bring someone special into your life, only to snatch them away just as quickly? Today's story is all about those magical connections that happen when we least expect them, and the secrets that can both tear us apart and bring us together. If you've ever believed in second chances or the power of truth to heal even the deepest wounds, this story is for you. Before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our new uploads. Your support means the world to us, and your comments always brighten our day. Now, settle in with your favorite cozy blanket and maybe a tissue or two, because this journey of love, mystery, and redemption is about to begin. The crystal charity masquerade glittered with Boston's elite, diamonds catching light, champagne flowing freely, and laughter that sounded as practiced as the classical quartet in the corner. Amid it all, Mia Bennett stood behind her camera, grateful for the professional barrier between herself and the world she was documenting but didn't belong to. Just a few more of the donors by the ice sculpture, her boss had instructed before disappearing into the crowd, leaving Mia, a last-minute replacement photographer, to navigate the sea of wealth and privilege alone. Through her lens, Mia captured what others missed: genuine smiles breaking through practiced ones, nervous habits of the newly wealthy, tender glances between long-married couples. Her camera found truth amid the performance. "You see things differently," a deep voice observed. Mia lowered her camera to find a tall figure in an impeccably tailored tuxedo watching her. Unlike the ornate masks adorning most guests, his was simple, midnight blue that made his eyes appear almost silver in contrast. "I'm just doing my job," she replied, automatically raising her camera as a shield. "No." He gently lowered the camera with one finger. "You're finding beauty where others don't look." Something in his voice, a sincerity that seemed out of place in this room, made her truly see him. Broad shoulders carried his tuxedo with unconscious elegance, but it was the slight tilt of his head, curious and attentive, that caught her interest. "Champagne." He offered a flute, their fingers brushing as she accepted. "Thank you, mister." Tonight, just a man in a mask. His smile revealed a single dimple. "Isn't that the point of masquerades? To be someone else for an evening?" "I think it's the opposite," Mia found herself saying. "Masks don't hide us, they free us to be who we really are." His eyes widened slightly, as if surprised by her insight. "An interesting theory. And who are you really behind your camera?" "Someone who prefers observing to being observed," she admitted. "Then we're opposites. I'm constantly watched but rarely seen." The simple honesty in his statement touched something in Mia. Before she could respond, the ballroom plunged into darkness as the power failed. Gasps and nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. "Are you afraid of the dark?" His voice came closer, a warm presence beside her. "No," she answered truthfully. "Sometimes it's easier to speak when you can't be seen." "Then tell me something true," he challenged softly. In that moment of darkness, surrounded by strangers yet strangely intimate with this unknown man, Mia found herself sharing things she rarely voiced. Her passion for capturing authentic moments, her father's recent death, her feeling of being untethered in the world. He listened, truly listened, and then shared his own truths. The loneliness of success, his search for something genuine in a world of transactions, his childhood in foster care. When emergency lights finally flickered on, they looked at each other with new awareness, as if they'd known each other for years rather than minutes. "I need some air," she said, suddenly overwhelmed by their connection. "May I join you?" he asked, offering his arm with old-fashioned courtesy. The garden behind the hotel was a fairy tale of twinkling lights and fragrant blooms, the spring night unusually warm. They walked in comfortable silence until reaching a fountain where water danced in moonlight. "I should probably introduce myself properly," he said, reaching for his mask. "My name is—" "Wait," Mia interrupted, touching his wrist. "Not yet. Let's stay in this moment a little longer." His smile was understanding as he lowered his hands. Instead, he moved closer, his fingers gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "May I?" he whispered, his gaze dropping to her lips. Mia nodded, her heart racing as he leaned down. Their first kiss was gentle, questioning, a soft press of lips that asked rather than demanded. When she responded, sliding her hands up his chest to his shoulders, the kiss deepened with a tenderness that made her knees weak. He pulled back slightly, his forehead resting against hers. "I've never," he began, then stopped. "This isn't how I usually." "Me neither," she admitted, understanding his unfinished thought. With deliberate movements, he removed his mask first, revealing a face that belonged on magazine covers. Strong jawline, aristocratic nose, and those eyes that seemed to see straight through her pretenses. But it was the vulnerability in his expression that truly captivated her. "Jackson," he said simply. "Jackson Reid." The name tickled something in her memory, but Mia was too caught in the moment to place it. She removed her own mask, feeling strangely bare. "Mia Bennett." His thumb traced the curve of her cheek with wonder, as if memorizing her features. "Mia," he repeated, the single syllable somehow intimate on his lips. What followed seemed both inevitable and extraordinary. His invitation to continue their conversation at his penthouse was offered with surprising shyness rather than presumption. The ride in his private elevator was filled with anticipation but not awkwardness, their hands linked naturally between them. His penthouse was a study in contrasts, soaring windows showcasing the glittering city, furnishings that spoke of wealth but also comfort. Yet Mia barely noticed the surroundings, focused instead on the gentle way Jackson cupped her face as he kissed her again. Their night together unfolded in tender moments rather than rushed passion. He traced constellations between the freckles on her shoulder, whispering their names against her skin. She discovered the small scar on his collarbone, listening as he shared the childhood story behind it. Each touch was a question answered with sighs and whispers, building a language only they understood. When morning came, Mia woke to find their fingers still interlaced, golden light spilling across tangled sheets. Jackson slept peacefully beside her, his expression younger and unguarded. She carefully extracted herself to use the bathroom, grabbing her camera bag on the way. When she returned, Jackson was awake, watching her with a smile that made her heart flutter. "Good morning," he said, voice rough with sleep as he reached for her. "Morning," she replied, settling back beside him, her head finding the perfect spot on his shoulder. "I was thinking," he began, fingers playing with her hair, "maybe we could." His words cut off as his gaze fixed on something across the room. Following his line of sight, Mia realized her camera bag had fallen open, spilling some of its contents. Among them was a photograph, one of her favorites of her father receiving the Pioneer in Genetics Award 3 years ago. "Is something wrong?" she asked, noticing how Jackson's body had tensed beneath her. He sat up abruptly, reaching for the photo with an expression she couldn't interpret. "This man," he said, voice suddenly formal. "You know him?" "Of course," Mia replied, confused by the change. "That's my father, Dr. David Bennett. He was a geneticist at Boston Medical Research Institute." "Was?" Jackson's question came sharp and quick. "He passed away last year. Cancer." The familiar grief tightened her throat. "He was my hero." Something unreadable flashed across Jackson's face. Shock, disbelief, perhaps even anger. He stood suddenly, pulling on his discarded clothes with mechanical movements. "Jackson, what's happening?" Mia clutched the sheet to her chest, the intimate atmosphere evaporating. "I just remembered an urgent meeting," he said, not meeting her eyes. "I'm sorry, but I need to ask you to leave." "Leave?" The word felt like a slap. "Last night you said." "Last night was a mistake," he interrupted, his voice cold and distant. "My assistant will see you out." As if summoned, a discreet knock came at the door, and a professionally dressed woman entered with Mia's clothes, freshly pressed. "Mr. Reid has arranged a car for you, Ms. Bennett," the assistant said politely, as if this were a normal business transaction. Humiliation burned through Mia as she dressed quickly in the bathroom. When she emerged, Jackson was on his phone, his back to her, speaking in terse business terms as if she weren't even there. "Jackson," she tried one last time, pride warring with confusion. "Did I do something wrong?" He finally turned, his expression now a perfect mask, the warm, vulnerable man from last night completely gone. "Thank you for a pleasant evening, Ms. Bennett. I wish you well." The dismissal was unmistakable. Fighting tears, Mia grabbed her camera bag and walked out with as much dignity as she could muster, wondering how the most meaningful connection she'd felt in years could dissolve so completely at the mere mention of her father's name. As the elevator descended, taking her away from the brief fantasy of belonging she'd experienced in Jackson's arms, Mia had no way of knowing that their story was far from over, or that the man who had just broken her heart would return 6 months later with a ring, a devastating secret, and a revelation that would change everything she believed about herself and the father she had adored. 6 months could change everything and nothing at all. Mia had rebuilt her life with careful precision after that humiliating morning in Jackson's penthouse. Her photography business had flourished, her client list expanding from charity events to corporate portraits and finally to the artistic work she truly loved, capturing authentic human moments in black and white. Tonight marked her first gallery showing in Boston's prestigious Newbury Street district. "Unmasked. Portraits of Authentic Connection," read the banner above the entrance. The irony wasn't lost on Mia as she smoothed her simple black dress and prepared to face the crowd. "To the artist of the hour," her assistant Lily toasted, handing Mia a glass of champagne. "The reviews are already coming in online. They're calling you refreshingly honest in an age of filters and facades." Mia smiled, though champagne now carried memories she'd rather forget. "Let's hope that translates to sales. I have rent due next week." The gallery hummed with conversation as Boston's art crowd moved between her photographs, all capturing moments of genuine human connection. An elderly couple holding weathered hands. Children with heads bent together in conspiracy. Strangers sharing an umbrella in sudden rain. Conspicuously absent were any romantic couples. Mia had found herself unable to photograph such moments without her mind returning to a midnight blue mask and whispered constellations. "Ms. Bennett, your work is extraordinary," a collector commented, pulling her from her thoughts. "The intimacy you capture without exploitation, it's rare." "Thank you. I believe true connection is sacred," she replied, the practiced response coming easily. "If you'll excuse me, I need to check on the West Wall display." As Mia moved through the crowd, a prickling sensation crawled up her spine, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. She'd developed this awareness through years behind the camera, knowing when her subjects became conscious of her presence. Slowly, she turned, scanning the room until her gaze collided with familiar silver-blue eyes. Jackson Reid stood across the gallery, more handsome than her stubborn memory had preserved. His bespoke suit emphasized broad shoulders, but something was different, a slight hollowness to his cheeks, shadows beneath his eyes that hadn't been there before. For one suspended moment, they simply stared at each other across the crowded space, the background noise fading to a distant hum. Then Jackson moved toward her with purposeful strides. Mia's heart hammered against her ribs as she straightened her spine, determined not to show weakness. "Mr. Reid," she greeted coolly when he reached her. "I don't recall sending you an invitation." "I bought a ticket," he replied, his voice sending unwelcome shivers down her spine. "Your work deserves support." "How generous," she said, unable to keep the edge from her voice. "If you'll excuse me, I have guests to attend to." His hand caught her elbow as she turned away, the touch sending electricity through her despite her anger. "Mia, please. 5 minutes. That's all I ask." "You had all night 6 months ago," she replied quietly, ensuring nearby guests couldn't hear. "Before you threw me out like yesterday's newspaper." Something like pain flashed across his face. "I deserve that. And worse. But there are things you need to know, things I should have explained that morning." I'm not interested in belated explanations. It's about your father, he said, the words stopping her retreat. And about me. Please, Mia. 5 minutes, and if you still want me to leave afterward, I'll go and never bother you again. Curiosity warred with self-preservation. Her father had been gone for over a year, the loss still a raw wound. What could Jackson possibly know about him? 5 minutes, she conceded. Outside. Mia quickly informed Lily she needed a short break, then followed Jackson through the gallery's side exit into the quiet alley where deliveries were made. The spring evening was cool, the brick walls still holding the day's warmth. You're looking well, Jackson offered, his eyes moving over her with an intensity that made her skin warm despite her anger. Skip the pleasantries, Mia crossed her arms. 4 minutes left. Jackson ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of uncertainty she remembered from their night together. This isn't easy to explain. Could we perhaps go somewhere more private? My car is just around the corner. No, she said firmly. Say what you came to say right here. He sighed, then reached into his jacket pocket, withdrawing a folded medical document which he handed to her. 2 weeks ago, I was diagnosed with Bennett syndrome. Mia's breath caught. That's named after my father. His research. Yes, it's an extremely rare genetic disorder affecting the body's ability to produce certain proteins. Without treatment, it's fatal within a year. His clinical tone couldn't quite mask the underlying fear. There are fewer than 50 known cases worldwide. Mia unfolded the document, scanning the medical terminology. I'm sorry to hear that, but I don't understand what this has to do with me. 3 days ago, my medical team discovered something extraordinary, Jackson continued. During a database search for potential treatment matches, your name appeared. A routine physical you had last month flagged unusual genetic markers in your blood work. Mia remembered the appointment, her doctor mentioning something about unusual results but assuring her they weren't concerning, just interesting from a research perspective. My markers match yours? She asked, medical knowledge from her father's dinner table conversations surfacing. Not just match, complement, Jackson explained. Your genetic structure contains the exact coding sequence that could potentially reverse my condition. It's like finding a perfect puzzle piece. The coincidence seemed too great. That's statistically impossible. Unless it's not coincidence at all, Jackson said quietly. Mia, I was adopted as an infant through a private arrangement. No records, no birth certificate. I've been searching for my biological parents my entire adult life. A chill that had nothing to do with the evening air ran through her. What are you suggesting? When I saw that photograph of your father, I recognized him. Not from personal memory but from my research. Dr. David Bennett ran an experimental fertility clinic from 1985 to 1990, working with genetic selection techniques that were revolutionary for the time. My father was a respected geneticist, Mia defended automatically. Yes, he was. And I believe he was also my biological father. The world seemed to tilt beneath Mia's feet. That's impossible. My parents tried for years to have me. I was their miracle. You were born in 1993, correct? When she nodded, Jackson continued. I was born in 1988. Different mothers, potentially. But the genetic markers we share are too specific to be coincidence. Mia's mind raced through implications too enormous to process in an alley behind her gallery. This is why you pushed me away that morning. You thought we were half-siblings, yes. The word hung between them, loaded with the memory of their night together. Panic. It was cowardly not to explain, but I needed to confirm my suspicions before saying anything. And now you need my help, Mia concluded, the pieces falling into place. That's why you're here. Not to apologize, but because you need something from me. Jackson's expression tightened. I won't deny I need your help. The treatment protocol requires biological material that only you can provide. But that's not the only reason I came tonight. A sleek black car pulled up at the end of the alley, and Jackson glanced at it before returning his attention to Mia. "Your 5 minutes are up, but I'm asking for more time. There's much more to explain, and this isn't the place." "I have guests waiting," Mia said, though her mind was reeling too much to focus on the gallery showing. "Tomorrow then," he pressed. "Please, Mia. This isn't just about me anymore. Don't you want to know the truth about your father? About yourself?" The question struck a nerve. Since her father's death, Mia had felt adrift, questioning everything she thought she knew about the man who had shaped her life. If there were secrets, didn't she deserve to uncover them? "Fine. Tomorrow. Text me the details." She turned to leave, then paused. "And Jackson, if you're lying to manipulate me, I'll never forgive you." "I understand," he said solemnly. "Thank you, Mia." The next afternoon found Mia sliding into the passenger seat of Jackson's Bentley, her body tense with anticipation and lingering anger. He looked worse in daylight, the signs of illness more apparent despite his impeccable appearance. "Thank you for coming," he said, signaling his driver to pull away from the curb. "Where are we going?" she asked, noticing they were heading out of the city. "My home outside the city. I have documents there I need to show you." They rode in silence for several minutes, the luxury of the vehicle a stark contrast to the tension between them. Finally, Jackson spoke again. "The treatment I need is experimental. It involves bone marrow transplantation combined with genetic therapy using your specific markers." He turned to face her. "The Medical Ethics Committee will only approve it for immediate family members." Mia's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "You need to prove we're related." "Yes. And even then, there are complications with insurance coverage and consent forms." He hesitated. "The simplest solution, legally speaking, would be marriage." "Marriage?" Mia nearly choked on the word. "You can't be serious." "Completely serious," Jackson replied, his expression grave. "I wouldn't ask if there were any other option. The treatment needs to begin within weeks if it's going to be effective." "Let me get this straight," Mia said, struggling to process. "You want me to marry you, a man who threw me out of his apartment after a one-night stand, because you think we might share a father and you need my bone marrow?" Put so bluntly, even Jackson winced. "I know how it sounds, but there's more to this story than either of us understands yet. I've spent the last 6 months investigating your father's work, and what I've found raises disturbing questions." The car turned through imposing gates onto a private drive lined with ancient oaks. At its end stood a stunning modern home of glass and stone, somehow harmonizing with the natural landscape rather than imposing upon it. Inside, Jackson led her to his study, a warm space of leather and books that seemed at odds with his public image as a tech innovator. One wall was covered with what looked like a detective's investigation board, photographs, documents, and red string connecting various elements. At the center was a picture of her father. "What is all this?" Mia asked, approaching the wall with trepidation. "My search for answers," Jackson replied, moving to stand beside her. "It began 20 years ago when I learned I was adopted. The past 6 months, it became more focused." He pointed to a document, a faded newspaper clipping about the opening of the Bennett Fertility Clinic in 1985. "Your father was pioneering work in genetic selection to eliminate hereditary diseases. Officially, the clinic closed in 1990 due to funding issues." "I know all this," Mia said. "Dad talked about his early work often." "Did he ever mention Project Genesis?" Jackson asked, indicating a folder with the name stamped across it. "No. What is it?" "I'm not entirely sure," he admitted. "But I found references to it in sealed court documents. Whatever it was, the records were deliberately obscured." For the next hour, Jackson walked her through his investigation. Adoption records with suspicious gaps, financial transactions between the clinic and unknown entities, and most disturbing, a list of children born between 1988 and 1994 with specific genetic markers. Both their names were on the list. "This can't be right," Mia said, sinking into a leather chair as the implications overwhelmed her. "My parents tried for years to have me. They told me about the fertility treatments, how I was their miracle." "You were," Jackson said gently, kneeling beside her chair. "Just perhaps not in the way they explained." Mia's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to believe anymore." "Then help me find the truth," Jackson urged, taking her hand. "For both our sakes." Before she could respond, Jackson suddenly tensed, his face contorting in pain. He gripped the arm of her chair, knuckles white as he struggled to breathe normally. "Jackson!" Alarm replaced confusion as Mia watched color drain from his face. "It's fine," he managed, though clearly it wasn't. "Just need a moment." Acting on instinct, Mia helped him to the sofa, supporting his weight as another spasm of pain hit him. "What do you need?" "Medication." He gestured weakly toward his desk. "Top drawer. Blue pill bottle." Mia retrieved it quickly, helping him swallow the medication with water from a carafe on the side table. For several minutes, she sat beside him, her hand rubbing circles on his back as his breathing gradually normalized. "I'm sorry," he said finally, embarrassment evident in his voice. "The episodes are becoming more frequent. How long have you known about your condition?" "The symptoms started about 8 months ago. The diagnosis came 2 months later." He straightened slowly, though Mia noticed he remained paler than normal. "The irony isn't lost on me, that the man I believe to be my biological father pioneered research into the very condition that's killing me." The vulnerability in his admission broke through some of Mia's defensive walls. This wasn't the calculating businessman who had dismissed her that morning 6 months ago. This was a man facing his mortality, searching for answers that might save his life. "I'll do the DNA test," she decided. "We need to know if your theory is correct." Relief washed over his features. "Thank you. But marriage is a different matter entirely," she added firmly. "Let's take this one step at a time." The DNA results would take several days, leaving Mia and Jackson in an uncertain limbo. Despite her reservations, Mia found herself drawn into his investigation, her photographer's eye noticing connections in the documents that he had missed. They established a tentative working relationship, meeting daily at his home to review materials and develop theories. Jackson's health continued to deteriorate, though he tried to hide the worst episodes from her. Mia pretended not to notice when he needed to rest or when his hands trembled too much to hold his coffee cup. On the 3rd day, they discovered a journal hidden in a box of her father's research papers that Mia had retrieved from her mother's attic. The entries were cryptic, referring to complementary pairs and genetic resonance. "Listen to this," Mia said, reading from an entry dated June 1988. "Subject J shows perfect expression of the target sequences. If theory holds, a complementary match will create the possibility of complete genetic harmony. The implications for future medical applications are extraordinary." "Subject J," Jackson repeated. "My birth month was June 1988. They looked at each other, the possibility hanging between them. "He was creating matched pairs," Mia said slowly. "Children with complementary genetic structures." "But why?" Jackson asked, the question that had driven his search from the beginning. Before they could discuss further, Jackson's housekeeper announced dinner was ready. They had fallen into a routine of working through meals, their shoulders touching as they pored over documents across the kitchen island. That evening, exhaustion caught up with them both. After dinner, Jackson suggested a break, putting on an old film neither really watched. Mia found herself studying his profile in the flickering light from the screen, noting the strength in his jawline contrasted with the vulnerability in his eyes. Somewhere during the 2nd act, her head drooped onto his shoulder. His arm came around her automatically, a gesture of comfort that felt surprisingly natural. They fell asleep that way, the investigation temporarily forgotten as their bodies sought simple human connection. Mia woke hours later to find Jackson watching her, his expression unguarded in a way she'd only seen once before, during their night together. "I'm sorry," she murmured, straightening. "I didn't mean to fall asleep on you." "I didn't mind," he replied softly. Then, with unexpected honesty, "It's been a long time since I've felt this comfortable with anyone." The admission hung between them, charged with possibilities neither dared explore while so many questions remained unanswered. "Jackson," Mia began hesitantly, "what if the DNA test shows we are related? What then?" His expression grew serious. "Then we face that reality together, find another solution for my treatment, and continue searching for the truth about your father's work. And if we're not related?" The question emerged barely above a whisper. Jackson's gaze dropped to her lips for the briefest moment before returning to her eyes. "Then we have a different set of questions to answer." The air between them thickened with unspoken possibilities, memories of their night together hovering like ghosts. Before either could speak again, Jackson's phone rang. His doctor, calling with the preliminary DNA results. As he listened, his expression transformed from tension to shock to something Mia couldn't quite interpret. When he ended the call, he sat in silence for several moments. "Well," Mia prompted, her heart racing. "The results are unexpected," Jackson said carefully. "We share specific genetic markers that are extremely rare, the complementary sequences I need for treatment. But we don't share enough common DNA to be half-siblings." Relief flooded through Mia, followed immediately by confusion. "Then your theory about my father may still be correct, but not in the way I thought," Jackson interrupted. "The doctor believes our genetic compatibility was deliberately engineered. We were designed to match each other, Mia." The implications were staggering. "Designed? How is that possible?" "I don't know," Jackson admitted. "But I intend to find out." He hesitated, then continued with careful precision. "This changes the ethical concerns about treatment, but not the legal ones. I still need a familial or spousal relationship to access the protocol." Mia stood, needing physical distance to process everything. "You're still asking me to marry you?" "Yes," he acknowledged. "A temporary arrangement, dissolved once the treatment is complete. You would be fully compensated, of course." "Compensated?" The word stung more than it should have. "This isn't about money, Jackson." "Then what is it about?" he challenged gently. "Why are you really hesitating?" The question cut to the heart of her confusion. Why was she reluctant? The DNA test had eliminated the most disturbing possibility. Jackson's need was genuine, his condition deteriorating daily. And despite everything, she couldn't deny the connection between them, a pull that transcended their complicated circumstances. "I need time to think," she said finally. "This is a lot to process." Jackson nodded, respecting her boundary, though she could see the urgency behind his eyes. "Of course. But Mia," he caught her hand as she turned to leave. "Time is the one thing I don't have much of." The quiet admission, free of manipulation or pressure, affected her more than any argument could have. As she drove home that night, Mia realized that somewhere between investigation sessions and shared meals, between his medical episodes and late-night conversations, Jackson Reid had become more than a research partner or potential patient. He had become someone she cared about. Someone whose loss would leave a hole in her world that had only recently begun to feel whole again. The realization was as terrifying as it was undeniable. The decision came to Mia in the quiet hours before dawn, certainty settling over her like the first light breaking through her apartment windows. By the time she arrived at Jackson's home that morning, the weight of hesitation had lifted. "Yes," she said simply when he opened the door, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was agreeing to. Jackson's expression shifted from surprise to profound relief. "You're sure?" "No," Mia admitted with a small smile. "But I'm sure about helping you. And I'm sure about finding the truth." His answering smile transformed his face, momentarily erasing the signs of illness that had become more pronounced. "Thank you doesn't seem adequate." "Then don't thank me," she replied. "Just promise we'll get answers about my father, about Project Genesis, about why we were designed." "I promise," he said, the words carrying the weight of a vow more binding than the marriage they were about to enter. 3 days later, they stood in Jackson's study with his lawyer and a judge he knew personally, exchanging clinical vows that established their legal union without touching on emotions neither was ready to acknowledge. The ring Jackson placed on her finger was elegant but temporary, a platinum band with no stones, nothing to suggest permanence or sentiment. Yet his fingers trembled slightly as he slid it into place, and Mia found herself wondering if it was weakness from his condition or something else entirely. "The treatment can begin tomorrow," Jackson said afterward, as his staff prepared a small celebration lunch neither had appetite for. "My medical team is ready." "Good," Mia nodded, twisting the unfamiliar ring on her finger. "But first, I want to follow up on something I found in my father's papers." She showed him a notation from the journal, an address in western Massachusetts with the cryptic label Archive Gamma. "It could be nothing," she cautioned, "but the date matches when Project Genesis was most active." Jackson studied the notation. "It's worth investigating. We can leave this afternoon." The drive took them through increasingly rural landscapes, autumn painting the Berkshire hills in fiery colors. They traveled in comfortable silence, the awkwardness of their new legal status gradually giving way to the familiar rhythm they'd established during their investigation. The address led them to what appeared to be an abandoned medical records facility, a low concrete building partially reclaimed by nature, its parking lot cracked with persistent weeds. "Charming," Mia commented as they approached the padlocked entrance. "Very secret government experiment aesthetic." Jackson's laugh was unexpected, a warm sound she'd heard too rarely. "Should we knock or?" Mia pointed to a keypad beside the door. "Try your birthday." "Why would my birthday?" "Just try it," she insisted. Skeptically, Jackson entered the digits. Nothing happened. "Try mine," Mia suggested. Again nothing. "Wait," Jackson said suddenly. "Not our birthdays. Our project numbers." He entered a 6-digit sequence from the list they'd discovered. The lock clicked open. They exchanged a look of mingled triumph and unease before pushing through the heavy door into musty darkness. Jackson's phone flashlight revealed rows of filing cabinets stretching into shadows. "We need to find Section G," Mia said, recalling another notation from her father's journal. Genesis records would be there. For hours they searched through files, piecing together fragments of a project more extensive than either had imagined. Project Genesis, it seemed, had created dozens of complementary pairs. Children genetically engineered to provide biological solutions for each other. "Listen to this," Jackson called from across the room. Subject J and Subject M represent the most successful pairing, with perfect complementary expression of target sequences. Monitoring will continue through development to ensure compatibility is maintained. "They were watching us," Mia realized, a chill running through her. "All our lives." "Not just watching," Jackson added grimly, holding up another document. "Directing. Look at these school placement recommendations, medical interventions, even career guidance counselors. They were steering our development." Outside, the weather had deteriorated, rain lashing against the building's few windows as thunder rumbled in the distance. Neither noticed until Jackson's phone chimed with a weather alert. Flash flood warnings, roads closing throughout the county. "We should head back," he said reluctantly, gathering the most relevant files. "Before we're stranded." Too late. The parking lot had become a shallow lake, the access road beyond it transformed into a rushing stream. After several attempts to find an alternate route, they were forced to accept reality. They would be spending the night in the facility. "At least we have plenty of reading material," Mia joked weakly, trying to mask her discomfort at being trapped. Jackson's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'm sorry about this. I should have checked the weather forecast." "It's not your fault," she assured him. "Besides, I'm where I need to be, following the truth wherever it leads." They made a makeshift camp in what had once been an office, using emergency blankets from Jackson's car and creating seats from cushioned filing cabinets. As night deepened outside, they continued reading by the light of their phones, occasionally sharing discoveries across their improvised workspace. "My father wasn't just creating compatible pairs," Mia said after a long silence. "He was trying to engineer genetic solutions for specific conditions, including Bennett syndrome. The condition named after him," Jackson noted. "The one killing me." "It's more than that," Mia continued, excitement building as connections formed. "These notes suggest he believed complementary genetic structures could transfer immunity. That one partner could essentially provide a genetic template to rewrite the other's defective sequences. Like a human antidote," Jackson murmured, moving to read over her shoulder. "Exactly. And we," she gestured between them, "are apparently his most successful pairing." The implications hung between them as Jackson settled beside her, their shoulders touching as they studied the documents together. The small office had grown cold as night deepened, and Mia found herself leaning into his warmth without conscious thought. "It's strange," Jackson said softly, his voice intimate in the darkness. "To think we were created for each other in such a literal way." "We weren't created for each other," Mia corrected gently. "Our bodies were designed to be biologically compatible. That's not the same as who we are." "Isn't it?" he challenged, turning to face her. "Everything I've learned about you these past weeks, your compassion, your determination, your courage, feels like the missing piece I've been searching for my entire life." The raw honesty in his voice made Mia's heart race. "Jackson, I know the timing is impossible," he continued, his hand finding hers in the dim light. "I know there are 1,000 reasons why this makes no sense. But I need you to know that even if we hadn't been designed as some genetic experiment, even if I didn't need your help to survive, I would still want you in my life." Mia's breath caught as he leaned closer, his intention clear in his eyes. For one suspended moment, she allowed herself to imagine giving in to the pull between them, acknowledging the connection that had been building since that first night at the Masquerade. Instead, she placed a gentle hand on his chest, creating necessary distance. "We can't. Not yet. There's too much we don't know, too many secrets still buried." Pain flashed across his features before understanding replaced it. "You're right," he agreed, though he didn't move away. "But when this is over, when we have our answers and my treatment is complete, we'll have this conversation again." It wasn't a question but a promise, one that Mia found herself wanting to believe in despite every rational objection. They fell asleep that way, side by side among the secrets of their creation, close but not touching, a metaphor for their relationship that neither missed. Morning brought clearing skies and a new lead, a reference to additional records stored at a medical research facility in Boston. As they prepared to leave, Jackson's phone rang. His doctor, concerned about the delay in beginning treatment. "We'll be back today," he assured the physician, though Mia noticed the effort it took for him to maintain his composure. The night in the cold facility had taken a toll. His complexion was ashen, movements slower than before. The drive back was tense, Jackson clearly pushing through increasing discomfort, while Mia pretended not to notice how frequently he needed to rest. By the time they reached Boston, his condition had deteriorated enough that she insisted on going directly to the hospital. "The research facility first," he argued weakly. "We're close to answers." "The answers can wait," Mia said firmly. "You can't." At Massachusetts General Hospital, Jackson was immediately admitted, his status as both a prominent figure and a patient in a specialized research protocol ensuring prompt attention. Mia found herself automatically listed as next of kin, the reality of their marriage suddenly concrete in a way it hadn't been before. "Mrs. Reid," a nurse called, the unfamiliar name taking a moment to register. "Your husband is asking for you." "Husband?" The word felt foreign yet strangely right as Mia followed the nurse to Jackson's room. He lay connected to monitors, looking smaller somehow against the white hospital sheets. "I'm sorry," he said when they were alone. "Not the honeymoon I promised." The weak joke made her smile despite her worry. I don't recall any promises about honeymoons. An oversight, he murmured, his eyes drifting closed. I'll make it up to you. Anywhere you want to go. I'll hold you to that, she replied softly, taking his hand as he fell into exhausted sleep. For 3 days, Jackson underwent preliminary treatments and tests while Mia divided her time between his hospital room and the research facility they'd identified. There, she discovered records that confirmed their suspicions. Project Genesis had created multiple pairs of genetically compatible children, designed to provide biological solutions for each other throughout their lives. On the 4th day, as she was leaving the facility with a stack of copied files, a sleek black car pulled alongside her. The window lowered to reveal a distinguished man in his 60s, silver-haired and impeccably dressed. Ms. Bennett, he greeted her, using her maiden name deliberately. Or should I say Mrs. Reid? A development that has caused quite a stir in certain circles. Mia tensed, instinctively clutching the files closer. Who are you? Victor Caldwell, he replied with a smile that didn't reach his cold eyes. Caldwell Pharmaceuticals. I was a close associate of your father's. The name registered immediately. She'd seen it throughout the Project Genesis documents. You funded his research. I recognized its potential, Caldwell corrected. May I offer you a ride? I believe we have matters of mutual interest to discuss. Every instinct warned against accepting, but Mia needed information this man clearly possessed. I prefer to meet somewhere public. Of course, Caldwell agreed smoothly. The restaurant at the Four Seasons in an hour. I assure you what I have to share will be worth your time. Exactly 1 hour later, Mia sat across from Caldwell in the elegant restaurant. Her back straight and expression carefully neutral. Your father was a visionary, Caldwell began after ordering for them both without consultation. He understood that the future of medicine lay not in treating disease but in designing humans resistant to it. By creating children as medical resources for each other, Mia replied, unable to keep the edge from her voice. Caldwell's smile tightened. A simplistic interpretation. Project Genesis created perfect symbiotic pairs, individuals whose biology complemented each other in ways that could revolutionize medicine. And my relationship with Jackson. Was that engineered too? Your genetic compatibility was designed, Caldwell acknowledged. Your emotional connection is an interesting side effect. One your father would have found fascinating. The casual way he discussed their lives as experiments made Mia's skin crawl. What do you want, Mr. Caldwell? To help, he replied, spreading his hands in a gesture of apparent goodwill. Mr. Reid's condition is deteriorating rapidly. The treatment protocol he's pursuing is promising but experimental, with significant risks. Risks he's willing to take. Perhaps. But are you? Caldwell leaned forward. The procedure requires your bone marrow, your genetic material. The integration process could trigger cascading reactions in both your systems. In the worst case, you could both die. Ice formed in Mia's stomach. The doctors haven't mentioned these risks. Because they don't fully understand what they're working with, Caldwell replied. But I do. I've monitored Project Genesis subjects for 30 years. I know exactly what happens when the symbiotic systems are activated. And what does happen? Mia asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. Sometimes miraculous healing. Other times. He trailed off meaningfully. Let's just say the results can be unpredictable when the connection goes beyond the physical. The implication was clear. You're suggesting our emotional involvement complicates the treatment. Precisely. Caldwell nodded approvingly. Your father's research indicated that emotional states between pairs created biochemical responses that could either enhance or destabilize the genetic transfer. So what are you proposing? Caldwell Pharmaceuticals has developed an alternative treatment, one that utilizes your genetic material without the risks of full integration. We can save Mr. Reid without endangering either of you. It sounded reasonable, Yet something in Caldwell's too smooth delivery triggered Mia's suspicion. "Why would you offer this? What's your interest?" "Your father's work belongs with those who understand its implications," Caldwell replied. "The files you've been collecting, the research you've uncovered, it should be protected, developed properly. You want us to hand everything over to you," Mia translated. "In exchange for saving Mr. Reid's life with significantly reduced risk," Caldwell confirmed. "A fair trade, I think." Before Mia could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Jackson's doctor. "Treatment ready to begin. Need you here immediately." "I need time to consider your offer," she told Caldwell, rising from her seat. "Of course," he agreed smoothly. "But not too much time, Mrs. Reid. Your husband's condition won't wait, and neither will my offer." As Mia hurried to the hospital, Caldwell's warnings echoed in her mind. Was he telling the truth about the risks, or manipulating her to gain control of her father's research? At the hospital, she found Jackson prepared for the first phase of treatment, his expression brightening visibly when she entered his room. "I was afraid you wouldn't make it," he admitted, reaching for her hand. The simple gesture of trust decided her. "I'll always be here when you need me," she promised, the words feeling like more than just reassurance about the treatment. As the medical team explained the procedure, bone marrow extraction from Mia, processing, then gradual introduction to Jackson's system, she chose not to share Caldwell's warnings. Jackson needed hope, not more fear. The extraction process was painful but brief. Afterward, as she recovered in a chair beside Jackson's bed, he insisted on hearing about her research findings despite his obvious fatigue. "Caldwell approached me," she admitted, unable to keep secrets from him despite her decision to withhold the warnings. "He knows about us, about the treatment." Jackson's expression darkened. "Victor Caldwell is dangerous. Whatever he offered, don't trust him." "You know him." "I know of him," Jackson clarified. "His company tried to acquire mine last year, specifically the biotech division. When I refused, there were incidents, security breaches, data corruption." The information added another layer to Mia's unease. "He offered an alternative treatment. Said this one was risky." Jackson's hand tightened around hers. "He wants my company. And now he wants your father's research too. What if he's right about the risks?" Mia asked, voicing her deepest fear. "Then we face them together," Jackson replied with quiet certainty. "That's what we were designed for, isn't it?" The treatment began that evening, a slow infusion that would continue for days, gradually introducing Mia's genetic material into Jackson's system. The doctors were cautiously optimistic, though they warned that results wouldn't be immediate. As days turned into a week, Mia established a routine. Mornings spent continuing their investigation, afternoons and evenings at Jackson's bedside. They talked for hours, sharing childhood memories, professional triumphs and failures, dreams they'd never voiced to anyone else. "I always wanted a family," Jackson confessed one night, the admission surprising from a man known for his solitary existence. "Not just to find my biological parents, but to create something new. Something chosen rather than designed." "Why didn't you?" Mia asked softly. His smile held a trace of old pain. "I never found someone I trusted enough to build that with. Until now." The words hung between them, too honest to dismiss yet too fragile to acknowledge directly. Instead, Mia shared her own secret. "I've been afraid of connection my whole life," she admitted. "Always holding part of myself back, watching rather than participating. It's why I became a photographer. It gave me a reason to observe without engaging." "And now?" Jackson asked, his eyes intent on hers. "Now I'm terrified," she whispered. "Because for the first time, I can't imagine going back to that distance." His hand found hers across the hospital blanket, their fingers intertwining with familiar ease. They fell asleep that way, connected by touch and something deeper neither was ready to name. On the 10th day of treatment, Jackson's medical team reported the first positive indicators. cellular changes suggesting his body was beginning to produce the proteins it had previously lacked. The news brought cautious celebration, though his physical improvement remained minimal. That night, as Mia dozed in the chair beside his bed, she was jolted awake by alarms. Medical staff rushed in as Jackson convulsed, his body rejecting the latest infusion in a violent immune response. "Mrs. Reid, you need to wait outside," a nurse insisted, guiding her firmly from the room. For 3 terrifying hours, Mia paced the waiting area, her mind cycling through worst-case scenarios. When the doctor finally emerged, his expression was grave. "The treatment has triggered an unexpected immune response," he explained. "We've stabilized him for now, but we need to suspend the protocol until we understand what's happening." "How long will that take?" Mia asked, fear making her voice sharp. "I don't know," the doctor admitted. "But without continued treatment, his condition will deteriorate again. We're running out of options." As if summoned by her desperation, Mia's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "My offer stands. Time is running out. VC. Caldwell." Somehow, he knew about the complication. When she was finally allowed to see Jackson again, the sight of him, pale and diminished against the hospital bed, made her decision for her. She would meet with Caldwell, hear his alternative. Not because she trusted him, but because she couldn't bear to lose Jackson now, not when they'd come so close to answers and to each other. "I need to follow up on something," she told Jackson, forcing brightness into her voice. "A new lead on Project Genesis. I'll be back soon." His smile was weak but genuine. "My intrepid investigator. Don't solve all the mysteries without me." "Never," she promised, pressing a kiss to his forehead before leaving, a gesture that felt both natural and significant. Outside the hospital, the black car waited, as if Caldwell had known exactly when she would capitulate. As she slid into the back seat, Mia steeled herself for whatever came next, determined to save Jackson even if it meant dealing with the devil himself. What she didn't know was that the alternative treatment Caldwell offered came with its own price, one that would force her to choose between saving Jackson's life and preserving the truth they had fought so hard to uncover. Thank you for watching. She thought it was just one night, until the billionaire returned with a ring, and a secret that changed everything. If Mia and Jackson's journey from strangers to soulmates touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more captivating love stories that prove destiny works in mysterious ways. Did you guess the twist? Were you surprised by Caldwell's true intentions? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us your favorite moment. Was it their first meeting at the Masquerade, their tender moments during Jackson's treatment, or that beautiful proposal with the constellation ring? Share this video with someone who believes in fated connections and the power of choosing love even when the odds seem impossible. Want more stories about unexpected love and dramatic revelations? Check out our Brothers and Romance playlist linked in the description. New videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. Turn on notifications so you never miss our latest heart-melting tales. Coming next on Sunday, the CEO's forbidden nanny. When a widowed billionaire hires his late wife's sister to care for his daughter, the attraction between them threatens to destroy both their families. Unless love can heal what grief has broken. Until next time, beautiful souls. Remember that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with just one unforgettable night.